So for today's cupcake board, I'm going to show you how to use our Clematis set. And in this, you get a garland and flowers and leaves. So I'm going to show you how to make those later. So you would cover your board with sugar paste and then emboss the garland all the way around. And then I'm going to show you how to paint it. So this one, I've left plain. So I'm going to do a very thin wash using the isopropyl alcohol, and this is Burgundy Shimmer from Edible Art, and put quite a bit of alcohol in there. Put a little bit more. It's just a thin wash, as I say, and the alcohol will dry very quickly. So just to go over the flowers. If you find that's too much, then you can just go back, take the excess colour from the brush and just go back and brush over again, just to remove some of that colour. So just paint in the flowers. And there's a little bud just here, and another one at each end of the garland. Just going to remove some of that colour because it's a little bit dark. Okay, so just use water to clean your brush, and then I'm going to use the dust. This is one of my favourites. It's Frosted Leaf, again by Edible Art. And again, it's just going to be a very thin wash of colour. And just touch it into the little curly bits there, the tendrils. If you just touch it, it should run along the embossed line. And then I'm going to paint a little yellow in the centre. And just dab that in. And then lime green. Now on the leaves, I'm just going to use a slightly darker green just along the veins. So this is called Rainforest. So just down the centre of each leaf. Over where the veins are. Just missed a little bit there. and you can just go back and check on the other painted garland. So the garland's ready, that's complete, and I'm going to go on to the cupcakes. So in the set, apart from the garland, you get a flower and leaves and some other little buds, but I'm going to use these for the top of the cupcakes. I'll do the flower in a moment. So the leaf, the main leaf, and then you have two smaller ones. Now on the smaller ones, one side is quite plain and the other is jagged, and I'm going to put these together, and you'll have, that's it, the plain side innermost. You'll see that when I come to put the leaves together. So I'm taking a little of the shortening, the Trex or white flora, and then I have some green paste. So it's flour paste, not ordinary sugar paste, and not sugar paste with gumtrag or Tylo powder added. It is flour paste, proper flour paste. And roll out. Don't lift it up and down. I want that to stick down on your board. And then put Trex on the cutter. So however many cupcakes you're going to make, you would need to cut one large leaf per cupcake, and then one of each of the smaller ones per cupcake. And then peel the paste away. Now, because I've rolled out on the shortening, the little bit of shortening that's on that board will help to keep the paste nice and pliable. If you were rolling out on corn flour, it would start to dry your paste out, and also the leaves would have lifted into the cutter. So that's why I use the shortening there. So just pop that back under there, and then I'm just going to use water and then lift the leaves. So that one goes that side. So that's the plain side against the large leaf, and the opposite side. So you have a little group of three. Give a little press. And then I'm going to put that onto a sponge pad. And then take the bone tool and just around the outside edge, not too much, but just soften the cut edge. So I'm just stroking that over the cut edge like so, and I'm going to leave that, and I'm not going to dry it on any former. I'm just going to leave that quite flat because it is going to sit on top of the cupcake, so I don't want too much movement because the flour is going to sit on top of that. So you would make those. I'll show you how to do the dusting later. So just put that to one side, and I'm going to make the flour. So this is the flour cutter, and I'm going to again use flour paste and just rub a little of the shortening and roll, and again don't lift the paste up and down, make sure it's stuck down on your board. I want to roll it quite thin. And then a little shortening on the cutter. And press firmly, and then just flick the cutter away and pull the paste away. Now I'm going to lift that onto a piece of card. Just slide your knife underneath. And then I'm going to dust a little burgundy. Now it's best to do your colouring at this stage, because once the flour's dried, if you try and colour it then, you're more likely to break the petals off. So do all the colouring at this stage. You want to get quite a bit of colour on just the tips there around the edge, because then I'm going to move that onto, oh no I'm not, I'm going to do a little bit of lime green in the centre first. And then I'm going to lift that onto a sponge pad. I'm just going to widen. So I'm using my bone tool, and it's the large end, so I'm having it curling upwards, and I'm just going to widen and soften those petals, not making them any longer, but just widen them. Slightly, and then a little movements. So the ball tool is half on and half off the paste, or the bone tool. And then pop that into a former. So I'm using one of these little paint palettes. So you can just pop that in there, and then we'll leave that to dry. So I'm going to go on and make the stamens. So this is the Stamen Cutter, and again I'm using flower paste. So I've coloured this yellow and rub a little of the Trex on there and roll out the paste. Now on this cutter it's very detailed, so I'm going to put plenty of Trex along the little pointy pieces there around the outside edge. And this time, let's move that out of the way, I'm going to place the paste onto the cutter. Just press it on, bring your finger around, and then really put your finger on there and press and drag, so you can see that cuts it through. And then pull that away. Now hold the cutter that way and just push it from the back so it dangles. And then just ease it out. Don't pull too hard, just ease it out and lay it down. Now I'm going to need two, so I'll do the second one now. Exactly the same. Again, now if you do have any little pieces of paste stuck in there, use obviously a new toothbrush, but just use your toothbrush just to flick out any of the little pieces, and then re-Trex. Plenty on there. Pop that on, press over, make sure you get a nice clean cut. And then finger on, press and drag, turn it round, press and drag. And then the spare paste, just pull away. Push from the back, and then just coax that out of the cutter. If it does break, don't worry, because you can just roll up the two little pieces that you may have. Use a stick to remove that. Now I'm going to take a very small piece of the paste into a little cone. Just pop a cocktail stick on there. I'm not wetting the stick. This is just purely to hold it as I roll this up. And then water. Along there. And I'll start from this end. Normally I start this end and roll up that way, but so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going the opposite way. So just make sure that the base is nice and flat and that you don't go spiraling up the cone. Then you go to the next one. Again, water. You could leave this at one layer, 2 layers, or if you want a really fluffy centre, then you can do 3 layers. I usually do 2. Okay, and then take the stick away, and then you would leave that. Just make sure that it stands upright. Because that's how it's going to be in the flower. And then you can just use your damp brush or a cocktail stick and just to ease those stamens out so that the whole thing, the whole flower will be edible. There's no artificial stamens in there. So you'd leave that to dry. So I have one here that's already dried, and I'm just putting a little lime green in the centre. Now this is the yellow sugar text. You could use ground rice with the yellow powder rubbed through it, but this is the sugar text. And I'm going to use glue. Now mostly when I'm doing any patchwork cutters I use water for sticking, but I just want to make this really quite sticky. So I am using the sugar glue. Just touch the ends and then pop that into the sugar text like so. I'm just going to bring the flower back in. Now because the base of this is flat and the base of the flower is cupped, you do need to fill that with a little sugar paste or softened flour paste. So you can just add a little bit of water to that. Just to make it soft. And if you've got a lot of these to make, then I would suggest that you have a couple of ounces of paste and then pop it into a piping bag, and then you can just go along and pipe some into the bottom of each flower, and then that would just sit in there like so, and leave that to dry. So the leaves, I've got some here that are dry, and I'm just going to brush over with the frosted leaf that I used to paint the board with earlier. So I'm just using that dry on there, and then I'm taking a little of the darker green, and I'm just going to brush down the centre where the veins are. And then that's ready to go on top of the cupcake. So as these are cupcakes, and maybe you don't want to spend quite so long making the edible stamens, this is a nice alternative. So if I've just placed a little ball of flattened yellow paste in the bottom of there, and then I'm just going to brush round the edge with the sugar glue. And then I'm taking some very small druggies. Just drop those in. And then use your paintbrush just to coax them. Around the centre there. And then just a little of the lime green in the centre. So that goes in dry. And so it's just a nice alternative to the edible stamens. I've covered the cupcake with duck egg blue sugar paste from Renshaw, and I'm just softened some with water, so just make it nice, not too thin. It's got to sort of hold the leaf and flower in place, so you don't want it too runny, but soft enough to either pipe or spread onto the cupcake. And then there's the leaf that I finished earlier, so pop that on there, and then a little more in the, oh, that's too much, a little more in the center, and then take your dried flower. Now don't hold the flower by opposite petals, because you tend to do that and they break, so just hold it sort of in the center like that and push down, and then replace the little things that have fallen out. But that's then ready to go on top of the board. Now I'm going to, instead of cutting out a name, I'm going to just cut out a number 70 and place that in the center of the board. So I'll do that next. So this is the 70 from our celebration number set. And again, I'm going to use flower paste. So a little bit of the Trex or shortening on there. And I've used the same burgundy dust colour that I've used to do all the painting and dusting of the flowers. So the shading will be the same all the way through. So again, roll. Always make sure you have one nice long roll so that you don't have any ridges. And then rub some little Trex on there. And on the 0. And then I'm just going to use the cocktail stick just to lift that from there. And then a small knife. Just underneath, lift and pop it onto your sponge pad to dry. Just make sure that it does go back into shape when you put it on there. So this knife has got a very fine blade, so it's easy to lift things. And then leave that to dry. You can paint them or just leave them plain. I'm going to leave mine plain, and I'm going to pop that into the center of my cupcake board. So here's the finished board, and I hope you have fun making yours.